York Undercover had it all. Drama, action, mystery, romance, and bangin' music featured in every episode, making it one of the most exciting and entertaining television shows to watch in the 90s. The American crime drama, co-created and produced by Dick Wolf, aired for 4 seasons on the Fox television network from September 8, 1994 to February 11, 1999.
The story of New York Undercover began with the man behind the idea, hip-hop music and entertainment mogul Andre Harrell.
I was Uptown Records, and the lifestyle I was giving people through my artists, through Jodeci or Heavy or Mary J. Blige, I'll be sure, was New York City. It was culturally right in the pocket. People loved it.
In 1992, Harrell inked an unprecedented deal with Universal Pictures to branch his hip-hop vision into film and television.
It starred Malik Yoba as Julius Clarence, or J.C. Williams, and Michael DiLorenzo as Eduardo Eddie Torres, 2 undercover detectives in New York City's 4th Precinct who contend with mean streets and their often turbulent personal lives. The idea was to create a show that had characters that reflected who the audience was, cops that represented the generation and represented the streets that they would be walking. One major source of inspiration was a trio of real-life Chicago cops known as the Slick Boys. They policed the city's Cabrini Green housing projects. They weren't like any other kind of cop that the public would typically see around. They were in their own community where everyone knew them and presented an interactive force instead of a suppressive force. Since JC was black, while Eddie was Puerto Rican, an entire demographic, which had been largely ignored at the time, was finally given a cop show with characters who looked like them in the 2 lead roles. New York Undercover attempted from various perspectives to address issues that confront inner-city youths, such as violence, racism, and drugs. JC was a single father, struggling with the demands of his job and raising his son, Gregory, played by George Gore II, whom he fathered as a teenager with then-girlfriend Chantel Tierney, played by Fatima Faloye. Eddie, from the Bronx, spent many years estranged from much of his immediate family, but did create close relationships with his brother Jimmy, played by Jose Zuniga, a Catholic priest, his sister Carmen, played by Lisa Vidal, a newspaper reporter, and his father Mike, played by Jose Perez, a jazz and salsa musician and recovering heroin addict. JC and Eddie were not only co-workers, but also best friends. The cast also included Patty D'Arbonville as their supervisor, Lieutenant Virginia Cooper. Each episode of the series opened with what the show's composer, musician, songwriter, and record producer, James Mtume, called a short-form video. The roughly 2-minute-long teaser set up the episode and helped define the show's visual and musical style. Speaking of music, you can't talk about New York Undercover without also mentioning Natalie's. Natalie's was the smoky nightclub where the young detectives hung out after work hours. The establishment was used for presenting some of the biggest names, old and new, in black music. The segments were looked at as a way of reintroducing older artists that many younger viewers might be unaware of. This would often involve newer artists covering older artist material, producing great moments like Escape, performing DeBarge's All This Love, John B. taking on Stevie Wonder's My Cherie Amour, Groove Theory covering the stylistics People Make the World Go Round, and Montel Jordan's version of Bobby Caldwell's What You Won't Do for Love. In the 2nd season, new character Nina Moreno, played by Lauren Velez, came on the scene. She was a fellow detective and love interest to Eddie. Like Eddie, Nina was also Nuyorican. At the age of 16, she married her boyfriend Luis and gave birth to a daughter. She ultimately placed the girl for adoption after Luis abandoned her. While in the development stage, the show functioned under the working title Uptown Undercover, named after the record label Uptown Records, whose founder and CEO, Andre Harrell, also served as executive producer of the series. As time went on, the buzz about Fox's buddy cop series kept getting louder. Midway through the show's 2nd season, Rolling Stone magazine declared it a genuine underground hit.
We knew we were doing something special. There's no question about it. We knew, I'd never seen anybody like me on television. And so being raised in Harlem, I took a lot of pride in presenting a character a certain way. The Timbs, the Army jackets, my toothpick, my Air Force Ones, my swag was all like I'm from here. I know, like, we literally shot in the neighborhoods I grew up in, the streets I used to run as a kid. So there was a pride in getting it right.
In contrast to the popularity of NBC's must-see TV on Thursday nights in the 90s, many African American viewers flocked to Fox's Thursday night lineup of Martin, Living Single, and New York Undercover. Then, after 2 successful seasons, the 2 male leads did something that had the potential to derail everything. In the summer of 1996, when shooting was supposed to begin on the 3rd season, Malik and Michael didn't show up, effectively bringing production to a halt. They banded together and presented a list of demands to Dick Wolf. Both actors reportedly refused to go back to work until each received a $50,000 per episode pay raise, a functional gym, larger trailers, better food, and more creative input. At the time, the cast of Friends was trying a similar tactic, but Wolf pointed out to his unhappy stars that New York Undercover was no Friends, and that both Malik and Michael could easily be replaced. Saying the series was operating at a deficit and was not yet a success with a large audience, Wolf and Universal wasted no time in responding to Malik and Michael. Fox called their demands a virus in the entertainment industry and threatened to write them out of the show by killing off their characters. Universal filed a $1.2 million lawsuit against the pair, alleging breach of contract and claiming that the delays were costing the production company $60,000 a day. After 3 days, the holdout ended, and the 2 actors returned back to set, with their demands unmet, and continued under the terms of their original contract. According to the LA Times, they claimed Wolf vilified them and misrepresented their positions in statements to the news media, and that the rift went far beyond pay raises. Both actors said that although they loved the show and their jobs, they were less than satisfied with the resolution of their dispute, saying they still believed that their actions were justified. Michael said, "I wanted to grow as an artist. I wanted to explore the opportunities to direct. Everyone else on dramas gets to direct. Jason Priestley directs episodes of Beverly Hills 90210. This was a matter of broken promises and giving people respect." Wolf's response, "I have never been disrespectful to any actor on my shows. That does not necessarily entitle anyone on my shows to direct an episode. In my 10 years as an executive producer, no actor working on my shows has ever directed an episode." Mr. DiLorenzo was informed of this position last spring. Malik was much more vocal in stating his grievances. His complaints against his bosses ranged from charges of racial discrimination to unresponsiveness to concerns about security and the well-being of the crew. Malik, who is passionate in his commitment to aiding urban youth, said he was unhappy that a marketing and merchandising plan that he had developed to link the show with a national strategy on violent crime prevention had been ignored. He also expressed exasperation that other struggling Fox shows, like Party of Five, receive more publicity and attention from the network than New York Undercover. Then President of Fox Entertainment, John Matoian, disagreed. He likewise expressed frustration that the producers declined to spend money to improve working conditions for the cast and crew, but came up with the cash to, quote, hire a white actor for the #1 show in Black and Latino households, end quote. At the beginning of the 3rd season, a new detective, Irish-American Tommy McNamara, played by Jonathan LaPaglia, was introduced as a principal character. His father was a police officer who was killed in the line of duty, with many suspecting that he was corrupt. Prior to his transfer to the 4th Precinct, he'd had very little interaction with New York's African-American and Latino neighborhoods or police officers. Then, just 2 weeks into the season, rapper Tupac Shakur was killed in a drive-by shooting. Hip-hop was now under attack in the media. That caused Dick Wolf to issue a mandate to pull back on using hip-hop music in New York Undercover that had become part of the fabric of the show. As a result, 4 of the show's writers resigned. In the finale of that season, Eddie and Nina are married. However, in that same episode, Eddie and Tommy are both killed by a gang of bank robbers. A probable result, as far as Michael is concerned anyway, of lingering tensions between him and Dick Wolf. The series returned with several changes for its 4th and final season the following year. JC and Nina were assigned to a new unit, resulting in Virginia being dropped from the cast. 3 new faces had joined the team: Lieutenant Malcolm Barker, played by Tommy Ford, Detective Nell Delaney, played by Marissa Ryan, and Detective Alex Stone, played by Josh Hopkins. Malcolm was the commanding officer of the NYPD's Special Investigations Division. When they first arrived to his division, JC and Nina bump heads with him a lot due to his different style of command, as they were used to Virginia's by-the-book approach. Nell is a young officer that lied about her age upon entering the police academy, but the department chose to overlook it when she was exposed years later. Alec is the SID squad's tech expert and the son of the head of a Brooklyn-based organized crime family. He was estranged from most of his family due to his decision to pursue a career in law enforcement. He and Nell were close friends. By this time, as the changes somewhat reflected, minority programming was no longer a priority for Fox. Apparently, the network told Dick Wolf that they wanted to market the show overseas. So to accomplish that, it meant removing some of the ethnicity in order to appeal to a global, aka white, audience. In January 1998, the Chicago Tribune reported that however respected Dick Wolf was in the television industry, he had missed the boat with the retooled version of New York Undercover. Writer-producer Reggie Rock-by-the-Wood, who had his hands in a lot of the urban-influenced episodes, was gone. The all-important musical moments faded too. There weren't any visits to Natalie's in the first 2 episodes. As a result, the article said, the show was now stripped of its individuality and, more importantly, its voice. Undercover is now simply a mainstream, although slick and entertaining, cop show, which may appeal to a wider audience and bring in higher ratings, but deprives its core minority fan base. A soundtrack for the show was released in 1995 by Uptown Records and MCA Records. It features a mix of hip-hop, R&B, funk, soul, and pop tunes, as well as the show's theme song. A second soundtrack titled New York Undercover, A Night at Natalie's was released 3 years later. Malik spoke to Vlad TV in 2019 about why he believes the show ended when it did.
They never really knew what they had. So the first 3 seasons, we called it the little ghetto show that could. So we knew that we were doing something special because the folks would let you know. But there was never a whole lot of regard. Like, you go to the Fox affiliates around the country to promote the show, you'd never see a poster. Like, I'm talking about in the hallways of the station, and you'd see posters for Melrose Place and Party of 5 and 90210 and X-Files and all those shows that live in color. Never saw anything on New York Undercover. Never saw a billboard. Never saw a T-shirt. We didn't even have a hot food truck on set, like basic production 101. So although the show was being produced and it was being aired, there wasn't a lot of regard. It would, for instance, during the Super Bowl, which you have the biggest audience in the world, they wouldn't run a commercial for the show, but they would run a commercial for a rerun of Full House or Home Improvement, which was syndicated shows at the time. So you knew that there was no love. And it wasn't just Fox. Vibe magazine never put us on the cover. And I remember telling Quincy Jones when Keith Klingscale and can't think of man, who used to run it? Can't think of his name right now. Not Ed. Anyway, those dudes used to run Vibe magazine. We're fighting, like, yo, dude, this is the hottest thing in the community. Like, all the artists in your magazine are on our show. Why aren't we on the cover? So Jet magazine would not list like TV shows to watch in the back of it. And there weren't a lot of publications that were appropriate to, urban publications, that were appropriate at the time.
In 2018, it was reported that series creator Dick Wolf and ABC were in talks to reboot the series. The following year, the network officially ordered the reboot to pilot, also revealing that it would be a revival of the original series, featuring both old characters and a new cast. Malik Yoba and Lauren Velez were confirmed to reprise their respective roles as JC Williams and Nina Moreno, with JC now being the overseeing officer of the new young detectives and Nina being retired, but retaining ties to her old unit. Several months later, it was announced that the revival would not move forward on ABC, but would be shopped to other networks and streaming services. According to Malik in his 2019 interview with Vlad, a pilot was shot, but since then there's been no further news about it. All seasons of New York Undercover are currently available for streaming on Amazon Prime Video and Peacock.